Hi, everyone. Wow, do we have a topic today? But first, a content warning. This episode references religious trauma, spiritual abuse, childhood conditioning, sexual coercion within marriage, and economic abuse. Please listen with care. Today, I want to tell you about the moment I received a nudge in my soul that my life might have been built on a lie. I was 23 years old, engaged to be married, sitting in a pre marriage counseling class at a conservative evangelical church, trying to do things the right way. A church leader stood in front of a small group of all of us young brides to be, and she was holding up bottles of personal lubricant, different brands, different types. She explained very seriously that our job as future wives was to be available to meet our husband's sexual needs anytime, all the time, whether we wanted to or not. And that's why we should keep this ready so we could perform wifely duties without resistance. I remember looking around the room, some women nodded and some looked as truly uncomfortable as I felt. But no one said anything because when you're raised in purity culture, when you're taught submission is godliness, questioning spiritual authority feels like questioning God. That night, I drove home in silence, and a voice deep inside the back of my head whispered that this might be wrong. But I pushed it down because that voice had been trained out of me since I was old enough to talk. It would take me another 20 years to fully understand this, that these teachings, they weren't just spiritually damaging, they were also economically devastating to me. Because when you're taught that your role is to submit, serve, and sacrifice, you don't just lose your voice, you lose your economic power, you lose your agency. And that keeps you trapped in ways that sometimes I couldn't see until I became so desperate to get out. If you're raised in a faith tradition that taught women to be silent, submissive, sometimes secondary, if you've ever felt guilty for wanting a career or financial independence, if leaving your faith felt like choosing between your soul and your survival, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea De La Cerda, CEO of multiple businesses, business coach, and a woman who spent the first decades of her life trying to be the godly woman I was taught to be and nearly lost myself completely in the process. I want to be clear. I am not here today to bash faith or organized religion at all. Many people truly find meaning and community in religious organizations, so I don't want to do that. But I am here to name what sometimes happens when religion is used to control women's bodies, silence their voices, and strip them of economic power, because that's not faith, that's abuse. And we need language for it so we can stop blaming ourselves for the harm. Let's start by letting me take you back to some of my story. I grew up, as I've mentioned before in this podcast, in an evangelical environment where I was called a strong-willed child. In that culture, let's just say it was not an endearing personality trait. It was a problem to solve. So my parents used a disciplinary framework shaped by some faith-based books at the time. The goal wasn't just behavior management, though. It was really submission training when I look back on it. The message was always that your will must be broken. Your voice is dangerous and questioning authority is sin. So stop. And when that's your foundation, you grow up believing that love is conditional, earned through compliance. And as a woman, then the purity culture arrives. As you get older, you're taught sometimes your body doesn't really belong to you. Your job is to guard men from lust. Your worth is tied to purity. Your future is marriage. Your highest calling is wifehood and motherhood. And it sounds spiritual and not surprising, but it trains one outcome: dependence. Marriage arrives, submission theology becomes daily life in a good Christian home. I was told that good mothers stay home. I was told it was ungodly to prioritize a career over my family. I was told my husband was head of the household, meaning that he made financial decisions, final decisions, especially money decisions. And if I resisted, if I wanted to work, if I wanted autonomy, if I wasn't available enough, if you know what I mean, the consequence wasn't just conflict. It was spiritualized punishment, coldness, shame, control, and the message that I, in some way, was failing God. And here's the most dangerous part. I believed I deserved it. My community told me I deserved it. My community had higher expectations for me, meaning my friends, my fellow family members. Because when your faith tells you suffering is holy, you stay and you keep trying to be good enough. By the time I left my first marriage, I had no income, no recent work history, no credit, two small kids, debt, and a community that viewed divorce as a spiritual failure. I had been prepared for dependence, and when I needed independence to survive, I had nothing to fall back on at the time. It was a tough lesson for me. So let's name what's actually happening here. First, equal but different really becomes hierarchy. In many conservative systems, women are told men and women are equal in value, but different in roles. So in practice, really it just means his career is prioritized, your earning is optional, he makes final decisions, and you support. Disagreement becomes disrespect. But that's not complement of two people, that's hierarchy within a spiritual veneer. And second, purity culture, we find, trains women for dependence. If your worth is tied to being chosen, being pure, being desirable, but not desiring, of course, you're trained to build a life around male approval. And when your identity is built around keeping a godly man, you don't build wealth, you build compliance. And third, marriage teachings spiritualize financial control. Because when one person controls money and the other is told that questioning that control is sin, that's not partnership. It's called economic coercion. And it keeps women trapped because leaving costs them way more than money. The cost of leaving is exile. For many women, leaving, it's not just walking away from a marriage or church. And many times there are children in the mix. So really, it can mean losing their community, losing family closeness, including to that of their children, losing their identity, losing the certainty in their life, losing that feeling of being good, because that's why so many women stay, even when the system is harming them. Because the system makes leaving feel in a way like death. It's so intense. So how do you break free without collapsing under this guilt and under fear? Here's a path I've lived, and I've seen other women walk this too. First, step one, name what happened. Call a spade a spade. Submission theology used to control you is spiritual abuse. Sexual duty without consent is coercion. Money control justified by scripture is economic abuse. You can name harm without hating every religious thing that you've ever known, but you have to name it first in order to heal it. Step two, grieve what was taken. You're not just leaving beliefs, you're grieving. You're grieving the childhood you didn't get sometimes, or you're grieving the years that you spent shrinking. You're grieving the financial security that you lost, or the version of God that demanded you to be small. Grief is not a weakness, it's reality, it's part of the process. And step three, find new sources of meaning for you. For many women, the scariest question is, well, if this isn't true, or if this isn't all I thought it was, what is? But you don't have to rush to the answer. Perhaps you just need a space to explore. Explore with therapy, with religious trauma competence coaches, books and community that validate your experience. Maybe some new spiritual practices that connect you to your body and to your intuition. And it's okay to give yourself permission not to know. Step four, build an economic independence without the guilt. And this is the practical lifeline. Do what you can where you are. Perhaps that's opening an account in your name, building credit in your name for the first time. Know what every household account, debt, and asset is. Maintain your skills and your employability. Maybe create an emergency fund that you can control. Contribute to your retirement in your name, or start a small income, small, real, and consistent. Economic independence, it's not a lack of faith. It's wisdom, it's protection, it's options, it's safety. Step five, reclaim your voice. Start small here. Maybe state your preference, share your opinion, say no without a whole paragraph of explanation. Speak up once in a meeting, maybe write the truth that you were trained to swallow, say it. Give voice to it. Your voice is not rebellion. It's the beginning of your recovery. Let me tell you about a woman I met. We'll call her Rachel. She was a pastor's wife, stay-at-home mom for years, no income, no accounts in her name, a husband whose control was labeled as leadership by her community. But when she finally started building a small income stream on the side, to her, it started to feel like selfishness. But step by step, we talked it through therapy, savings, and then with her skills, natural skills, she was able to build some stability. And when she left, the community called her rebellious. But this is really what mattered. For the first time, she could feed her kids on her own. She could pay her bills, and she could now make choices without fear. Freedom cost her approval, but it gave her back her safety. Here's what I need you to hear today. You are not a supporting character in someone else's story. You are the author of your own life. The teachings that demanded your silence and dependence, they benefited someone, but it wasn't you. Your voice matters. Your dreams matter. Your financial security matters. Your freedom and your safety matters. So this week, if this is speaking to you at all in your soul, write down 3 teachings that you absorbed about women's roles, maybe over the course of your entire life. Just 3. Then next to each one, write what I actually believe now. And this just might be cognitively what you believe, right? There's something you were taught, and maybe your brain knows this isn't true. Now, your subconscious might still react to it, but the first step is just write down what you know to be true and what you know not to be true. And then DM me on Instagram at AndreaDLC_coach and share one belief you're reclaiming. I really want to celebrate that liberation activity with you. And until next week, again, remember, your voice is not rebellion, it's a revelation. Use it. So until next time, take care.